Alright, I'm going to warp the rigid Heddle Loom using the direct warping method with my Jacob yarns. I've got a black one here. New yarns I just got back from the mill. And the first thing I've done is measure out how long I want my warp, and this is going to be a short little scarf. So this is a 65-inch string. I have one loop around the peg here, just clamped to the shelf, and one loop around the stick at the end of the loom. And that's 65 inches, and that's my guide string. Now I've tied my first yarn onto the stick right here, not to the back beam, but to the stick. And I'm going to bring my hook through and grab that yarn, and I'm going to loop it around the peg. And I continue that. I wrap this around my stick, making sure it doesn't go around the beam that's part of the loom, but around the stick. And I've already decided I want to do an inch of each color. So I've got an 8-dent reed on here. I'm going to do this 4 times. Between the slot, there's 8 slots and holes, 4 holes, 4 slots in each inch. So I do this 4 times, and I know I have an inch. And then I'm going to go to the next color. So this is a real easy way to wind a warp using lots of different yarns, different colors. I could tie this new yarn onto the old yarn, or what I'm going to do is just since I'm going to use all these yarns more than once, I'm just going to keep them down there on the floor. The yarns are sitting on the floor. I'm going to tie the new yarn to the stick and come through again. So every time I go around this stick here, sometimes the yarn comes from the top, sometimes it comes from the bottom. You just take it whichever way that it's coming. And I loop this around. I want the tension to be about the same. So if there's a problem with the yarn pulling in the ball or something, you want to make sure you have it loose enough that you don't have some really tight threads. You just want to have them all as consistent as possible. And there's the 3rd time through. See, that one's pulling a little bit, so I'm going to help it along that way. And then one more time here for this one, and I think that's 4 slots. So there's the 4th slot of the gray. And in this case, I am going to let these hang off the back. Now I'm going to take this one. This is the other gray. It's called Lilac in the Jacob Sheep world. I'm going to tie that on here. I'm kind of doing that just for the purposes of this video. Sometimes it might be simpler, might be better to tie the yarns, cut off the original yarn. Depends on how far over the yarn is going to go for the second time I use it. So because it gets a little messier in the back. You don't want it too messy in the back. Is the other way that I could be doing this is cut off that yarn, add my next one to the old yarn, to the last yarn. It's going to make it smoother in the back, and if you want to weave all the way up to the very end, that's going to make it easier. So I'm just going to cut that one off, or cut the gray one off, tie the white one to it, and now I can keep going with the white. And I just dropped my hook. Now the black is pretty far over here. I don't think bringing it this far over is a really good idea. So what I'm going to do, what maybe I should have done in the first place, was to cut this black off here. And I'm just going to tie it to itself. Just around the stick there. Okay, that's going to be better than having it stretch over that far. And now I'm going to take it and tie it Well, I'll tell you what, I will just tie it to this gray one that I just finished. We'll tie those two together down here. Or I could have tied the gray off to the stick and tied the black to the stick and started that way. Either way. So here's what the warp looks like. It's going through the slots. It's around the peg here. I'm going to grab each of these and tie a string around the group. Okay, I don't need the pink string anymore. I've taken that off. I've tied the two sides of the group back here, tied strings on that. And now I'm going to wind this warp onto the loom. And what I want to do is keep this as straight as possible, as even as possible. I grasp it with my fingers. I don't pull the warp through the fingers. I'm not spreading the warp through the, I'm not dragging the warp through the fingers. My hand is following the warp as I wind this on. I can put my foot on the loom to hold it, or if you have it clamped on the table, it should be okay. Uh-oh, I noticed a problem. See this problem? There are two loops that aren't on my stick. So if that happens, we're going to go backwards. That happened when I was winding, that somehow I thought it went around the right direction and it didn't. So let's see what we might do about that. You know what we're going to do about that? We're just going to loop those two over that back stick, and now we're good again. All right, so now I'm winding. Okay, so I still have the tension from my hand here to the back the same, and I'm winding it under tension. And as soon as it starts wrapping around the stick, all right, now I was talking and I forgot. As soon as it starts wrapping around the stick, I'm going to add some paper. And the paper's to keep those layers intact. So we start the paper in here. Have to kind of get it started. You have to make sure the paper goes on straight. You better have shorter pieces of paper so you don't have to worry about it getting all twisted while you're winding. All right, I'm going to get it started and in there just by giving it a couple of clicks like that. Now I pick up the warp again. I've got my foot on the stand that was holding the loom so that it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm pulling from the end here, pulling that nice and tight. I want all these threads to look like they're the same length. I'm grasping it with my hand. And now as I wind, I'm putting tension on that. So it's just winding on nice and straight. My hand is following the warp as I wind. Okay, and now I pick up my hand again. I didn't comb through the warp. I'm just picking it up back here again. I'm going to grab it the same way, pull it tight, and now keep winding. And if I need to add more paper, I will do that. And I might have just enough here. Okay, I have that much left. That's all I need now. And now what I'm going to do, turn the loom around this way. I'm going to cut through the loop right here. Take these ties off. You can see that each slot now has 2 threads through because we put a loop through there. Now all I'm going to do is take one of each pair and put it through the adjacent hole. And the trick with this, the easiest thing I think, is if you get both threads, hold them taut and pull one through, and then put that one through the hole. If you don't hold both of them while you're pulling this one through, then you drag the other one you drag the other one with it, and it's just easier if you hold both taut. I'll do it one more time. Hold both taut. That keeps this one in place while I pull the other one through. And now I just do this all the way across the loom.